7th grade. So I know we haven't had a video in a little while because we had the break, and then last week I kind of just wanted to let you guys to focus on your projects. But today we're going to talk about, it's going to be a longer video because I want to kind of catch up a little, talk about state and federal government, kind of move into Washington's presidency, things that we did in the worksheets but that I haven't gotten a chance to show you guys the notes for. So again, the video I made for 8th grade was like half an hour. You want to watch it over 3 days, watch it over 3 days. You want to watch it all at once, watch it all at once, pause, take your notes, whatever you want to do. Okay? So first thing we're going to talk about is state and federal government and kind of the powers that they are given. So acts of one state must be recognized by other states. Congress admits, I'm going to read it off and we'll talk about it. Congress admits new states to the Union. Federal lands in a state is federal property. Okay? Federal government will protect every state from invasion. So we're just going to go piece by piece. If a state decides to enact a law that's different from another state, that state, if those citizens, so if a New York citizen goes to Connecticut and the law there for something is different than New York, it has to be recognized. So New York can't go and say to Connecticut, hey, you need to change your law because it's different than what we have, and that's not going to be good. They have to recognize that each state kind of has different, that's not what I wanted. Each state kind of has different laws. And the reason being is it's such a big country and the Northeast is very different than the Midwest. So they're going to be different laws. So the governors from each state and the state governments need to recognize that. 2, with the admitting of new states. Congress has to approve it. A territory has to apply for statehood. They have to have a certain amount of population to apply for statehood. We haven't had that since the mid-1900s. We haven't had that since the mid-1900s. with Alaska and Hawaii, who came in to make 50 states. Puerto Rico is a territory that could become a state if they wanted to apply for the statehood, and Congress approved it, but they don't want to become a state. They haven't applied for the statehood. Okay? Federal land in a state is federal property, so if you have a army base in, say, New York, which I think there's one near Plattsburgh, that's considered federal land, right? So that's not state land. So the state laws don't apply to that. It's federal laws. Same goes for if you have the United States Army base, say, in another country like Japan, that land is considered the United States land. So if you're born on that land, you're considered an American citizen. So when you have soldiers and their families who are living on army bases outside the United States and they have a kid there, that kid is considered an American citizen even though he's not born in America, okay, because he's born on the federal land. And then the federal government will protect every state from invasion. All right, so if someone tries to invade, say, I'm just going to use the example, Russia tries to invade Alaska. I'm saying that because they're close to each other. The federal government would go and protect Alaska. Okay, and that kind of just applies for the entire country. All right. Powers denied to the federal government. So I'm just going to read it and then we'll go over it. Kind of take away habeas corpus, which is the right a person has from not being held in prison without formal charges of a crime. And then ex post facto law cannot be punished for a law that someone broke before the law was passed. So we're going to go one by one. The habeas corpus actually has been taken away by the federal government. It was taken away by Abraham Lincoln during Civil War. So if someone spoke out against the Union or was a Southern sympathizer, they could actually be thrown in jail with no charge, and they spent the entirety of the war in jail. So he revoked habeas corpus, and it was a bad look. And it's a bad look because it kind of makes it seem like the federal government has too much power. And something that America is kind of built on is the federal government not having too much power. Okay, because we don't want to go towards something like a monarchy where it's kind of a centralized power. They want to kind of keep it as even as possible between states' rights and federal rights. And then cannot be punished for a law that someone has broke before the law was passed. I think that one's self-explanatory. If tomorrow the federal government decides to make it illegal to, I don't know, drive over 20 miles per hour, I'm just giving a stupid example. They can't go and arrest everyone who's driven over 20 miles per hour prior to that. Okay? And the example I'll give is below. Betty Boone sells fireworks on July 4th. On July 10th, Congress passes a law that makes it illegal to sell fireworks and tries to punish Betty for what she did on July 4th. That's a much better example. I should have just used that right away. So you kind of get the gist of that. Habeas corpus is one that we're going to actually bring up again. So I don't really talk about the punishing you after a law is put through. We talk about habeas corpus because we talk about the Civil War. Okay, Constitution can be amended or changed. Needs 2/3 of vote from both houses of Congress. You have the Senate, which is 100 men or women. Then you have the House of Representatives, which is 435. It also needs 3/4 of states' governments to approve. Okay, so then that has to go through the houses of that individual government to approve it. So it's not an easy thing to do. We have 20, I want to say 27 amendments right now. Let me just double check. Yeah, 27. So again, we start with 10. The first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. And we slowly, over the 250 years that the country has been around, we've added 17. From 1789, when the Constitution is proved, to 1865, I think there was 3 added, and then after, or 2 added, and then after the war, Civil War, you have the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that have to do with slavery and freeing slaves and giving them the right to vote. So 2 added amendments in a 70-something year span, okay? And then from 1865 to 2020, you've had 12 more added. All right, so it's not a common thing because it's very difficult to do. But what it does is it makes it a living document, something that can be changed. And the reason it can be changed is life today is different than it was in the 1780s. And that's a big argument that's made with a lot of the first 10 amendments is how do we apply this to today to differ from how it was applied in 1789, right? I won't go into it because it gets very political when you do that. But if you want to just go read about it, it's very interesting because a lot of it is true. Life in 1789 is very different than life in 2020. So I think the argument is, should the Constitution be taken as word for word, or is it something that you kind of can interpret your way? And that's something that we've talked about with Federalists and Anti-Federalists that we're going to talk about again. So we're going to get to that. Okay. General provisions. Constitution and federal law is the supreme law of the land. Oh, let me start on. Constitution and federal law is the supreme law of the land. They outweigh state laws. This is something actually that if you've been watching what's going on in New York State in particular with the pandemic, Trump's federal laws, if he wants to come in and change what Cuomo's doing, technically he could do that. All right, because he can use these different acts that the president has if he wanted to. It's just usually the presidents don't use the full power that they have. We only see it in times of crisis, and technically now is a time of crisis. So we'll see what happens. I don't think Trump's gonna come in and try to change what Cuomo's doing because Trump has kind of said, "I'm gonna let the governors do what they want to do." If you want to look on a smaller scale, Mayor de Blasio in New York City announced he was closing schools for the rest of the year. And then Cuomo was a state governor, comes out and says, no, that's my call. And technically he's correct. That is his call. So there's a hierarchy. You have the local governments, you have the state government, then you have the federal government, and the power kind of flows through the top down. Okay? So this is something it's interesting because that's very relevant to what's going on right now. And the second thing is the separation of church and state. If you are elected, your oath is to protect the Constitution, particularly for the president. Your oath is to protect the Constitution. It's not to protect any religious. There's no religious requirements. Okay. Now, does religion is religion involved in government? In a way, yes, because a lot of the decisions that are made have ramifications in people's religions or affect people's religions or religious beliefs, at least. But you have to try to keep that separate. And usually it's not. It's a lot of times in politics, religion plays a large role, especially with a politician who wants to win over certain groups. Religion comes into the picture. Okay, and I'm not going to get into that either because of that. Again, that's political. Okay. I'm not going to read these because you guys kind of have a sheet on this. It's the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. You can just screenshot if you want, but I'm just going to move on. Okay, so Bill of Rights. Let's go through these people real quick. Those are the first 6 presidents, by the way. Okay. All right. So Bill of Rights, rights of the people. First 10 amendments that ensure people's basic rights. Your worksheet on it. We've talked about this, so I kind of want to just move through the notes. If you've noticed in the Google Classroom, I have this section, it's named Infancy. And the reason is because this is the U.S. infancy. So this is the United States of America in its kind of infant stage, okay? The country's weak. The smallest conflict, it says here, the smallest conflict could destroy the country. And that happens in 1812. We're kind of put to the test. We're a country that's only 23 years old, and we're fighting Great Britain again. And that, the War of 1812 is a huge test for the country. I think after 1812 is when we're not really in our infancy anymore. And we're going to get to that. That's kind of like the breaking point, I guess you could say. So from 1789 to 1812 is the country developing. And obviously the country is still developing after that. But I think after that, we're not necessarily fragile in the sense that the entire country can be destroyed. And as I'm saying this, in my head, I'm thinking the Civil War, but that's different. That's kind of an internal thing rather than an external thing. So think of external threats during this time period are a major threat to the United States. Once we hold back Great Britain in 1812, that's not really as much of an issue. Okay. After that, it's kind of internal threats among ourselves and disagreements among the states and the country on particularly slavery. Okay. So just know that the reason it's named Infancy in the Google Classroom is this is the United States infancy. This is when we were kind of weak, kind of baby-like country. All right. And when we're done with this chapter, which is we finished this chapter of the War of 1812, that's us coming out of the infancy. Okay. Washington. We talked about Washington in the worksheets. I'm pretty much going to today just kind of get up to where we are in the worksheets. Okay, sorry. So Washington's going to be the first president. He's going to be unanimously selected to be president. Okay. He's called back from Mount Vernon, which is where he lived in Virginia. There's stories, if you read, that he was kind of same thing when he was called to fight in the Revolutionary War. Oh, I don't want to do it. He did it. When he's called to be president of the Constitutional Convention, he's like, oh, I don't want to do it. He does it. Okay. They asked him to be president. Oh, I don't want to do it. He does it. He wanted to do it. He liked the attention. He wanted to be powerful. We know that from his younger years. Okay, so it hasn't changed. So I don't love the perception of he was like this humble man who kind of came back. He wanted to come back and save the country. He wanted to lead the country. So it's not. He didn't want to stay on his farm on Mount Vernon. Okay, after the 8 years, yeah, because he was drained and he actually died like 2 years after that. But prior to that, he won. He wanted the head of the Revolutionary, the Continental Army. He wanted to be the head of the Constitutional Convention. He wanted to be the head of the army. So if you read kind of, again, this is my opinion, but when you read kind of like the humble George Washington didn't want to lead, it's not true. Okay, well at least I don't agree that to be true. So he's gonna be sworn in 1789. He's actually sworn in New York City. You can go to the spot where he was sworn in as president because New York City was the capital at the time. The capital is going to move from New York City to Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. This kind of goes south, and we're going to talk about that with the compromise between Hamilton and Jefferson. So again, Washington inaugurated, set many precedents as an example. Precedent is an example set for future generations, particularly with his farewell speech, okay, but also with running for 2 terms and then leaving. He could have been president for life, all right, but he ran 2 4-year terms and then he walked away. And from then until 1912, no president tried to run for a 3rd term. Theodore Roosevelt ends up running for a 3rd term after stepping back for 4 years. His reasoning was he didn't have a full 1st term because he took over for a president that was assassinated. which no one really argued because in a way that was true. Okay, but FDR is actually going to have 4 terms. He's going to run 4 terms. Like 1932, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think he's elected a 5th, or he runs. I forget. He's president for 12 years. Okay. And after that, an amendment is put into the Constitution. Again, we're talking about amendments that restricts the president to be president for only 2 terms. Okay, so that they don't have too much power. That's just his the oath. Move past that. So Washington's cabinet. And this is gonna be important for a couple of reasons. 2 names immediately gonna kind of stick in your head. You have Hamilton and Jefferson. But Henry Knox, as Secretary of War, was a pretty important Revolutionary War hero. He actually was one of the men who took the cannons from Fort Ticonderoga and brought them over to Boston. Okay. Secretary of State is Thomas Jefferson. So he's going to oversee U.S. foreign relations. Jefferson's going to be brought back from, he was actually in France. So he's in France working with relations with the French. He's brought back in 1789, which is like right when the French Revolution was starting. And he's very pro-French. And that's going to be something that he's going to go head-to-head with Hamilton against. So here's Hamilton, here's Jefferson. Hamilton is going to be made Secretary of the Treasury. He's going to manage the government's money. Okay, and the plan that he's going to set up is kind of something that we still use today. The cabinet, they don't really work well together. Jefferson ends up stepping down because he can't work with Hamilton. He can't work with Jefferson. Again, Hamilton, Washington, they're Federalists. Jefferson, an anti-Federalist, he's a Republican. Okay, and ends up being a Democratic Republican. And their ideals just don't work out. Now, John Adams, who's the vice president right now, you would think, being vice president, you'd be the second most powerful person in the country. And it's not true. And that's where this kind of, the vice presidency gets established, what their powers are here in the first 8 years of Washington's presidency. Whereas they're head of the Senate, so they sit in on Senate sessions, they vote to break ties. But after that, they're kind of just used as they're next in line. Okay, you want a capable person who's next in line. But after that, they don't really have very much power. Okay. Currently, you see the vice president every day because he's on the task force for the coronavirus. So he's the head of the task force, so he kind of manages it. Again, is he a doctor? No, but he's managing it. He's managing the doctors. Okay. So you see the vice president, who's Mike Pence, every day, but a lot of times you don't always see who the vice president is. A big reason everyone saw who Joe Biden was during Obama's presidency was near the end of the presidency, people made memes about Joe Biden. And all of a sudden, he became kind of like a household name. And I say household as just like a common, like even young people like you guys kind of know who he is for something just as simple as that. Yeah, I mean, if you try to like name vice presidents, a lot of them are just forgettable. But it's important to have a capable vice president because we're going to see at different points in American history, the president dies, the president gets assassinated. If you don't have a capable vice president, it's not going to be good because that person is now the most powerful person in the world. All right. That's kind of now off the point of the cabinet, so let's just move on. All right. So some immediate economic problems. We have money owed to France, Spain, and the Netherlands because they were the 3 that helped us during the war. France helped monetarily, but they also helped with troops. Spain and the Netherlands essentially sent money and goods. So we're about $52 million in debt to start off. And we're going to have to repay this money if we're going to want people to respect us and view us as a nation. Right now, other countries aren't going to lend money to us. And lending money and having some sort of a like trading relationship with other countries is vital to survival. Okay? Countries aren't going to let us buy goods and say, hey, we owe you. They're going to say, no, you didn't pay us back for the American Revolution. We're not going to sell you these goods. So yeah, simple. Okay? We have to fix this. The person who's going to fix this is Alexander Hamilton. Okay? Hamilton's going to have the economic plan that puts in place how to pay back this debt and get it as a credit line so that other nations respect us. Okay? The initial plan was that states would pay back their individual debts because it was the states that were borrowing prior to the United States being formed officially in 1789. What Hamilton's going to do is he's just going to make it a federal debt. He's going to kind of collect all the money to the federal government and he's going to pay it off that way. Okay, so here's Hamilton's financial plan. Let's go step by step. There's a worksheet on this. Again, I know I'm going fast. You guys can kind of just like slow down and pause it when you want to. But I just want to kind of play catch up to get back to where we were in the worksheets. So Hamilton's financial plan. 1, pay off all the war debts. Okay, the national government will pay back the state debt. Okay, so they're going to assume the state's debt. So it's the states that have the debt right now. Because again, this is prior to the federal government. The federal government says, okay, we're going to take that debt. Okay. 2, raise government revenues. Okay, so that's going to be supplying businesses, selling goods, trading with other nations. That's how we're going to start to make money. Okay, and 3, create a national bank. Okay, there's actually no national bank anymore. We're going to talk about that when we get to Andrew Jackson. But Hamilton's financial plan wasn't immediately put through by Congress. Okay, even though it's a good plan, and the way it's much more in depth than this, but the way he sets it up is actually people aren't able to remove it later on. Okay, there are presidents who want to remove it later on and kind of do their own thing, but they're not able to because the way he set it up was vital to the way the economy ran. Okay, because it gave us a credit line. It was able to, other countries respected us and say, okay, we can actually trade with this country. So we made money off of them. They made money off of us. We will pay back the war debt and actually thrive. People in the South didn't want to do that because people in the South had paid back their debt already. Okay, the South had plantations and were already trading with European nations. Okay, cotton, for example, sugarcane, tobacco. It was these northern states who hadn't gone through the Industrial Revolution yet, so they don't have much industry, who are having difficulty paying it back. So Southerners are saying, we don't want anything to do with this because we paid back our debt. So why would we have to pay for the North? What Hamilton does is he takes Jefferson and Madison, and if you know the Hamilton play, this is true. The song takes some liberties, but this is true. They come to an agreement, which is Hamilton gets his national bank, Hamilton gets his financial plan approved, but the South gets the capital. Okay, at least close to the South. It's kind of like midway down the East Coast. And yeah, that's the agreement. Okay, South gets Washington, D.C. They're going to put in a contest for people to apply to design Washington, D.C. It's a swamp prior to this. That's important to remember. And they build on top of it. All right, so that's going to come about. All right. Let's see. All right. We're 23 minutes is pretty long. We'll stop here. This is just kind of the trading of goods and how to get the economy going. This is what Hamilton wants. So workers use wages to buy goods. They then deposit money in the banks. Banks use some of the deposit money to give out loans so people can expand their businesses or buy homes. Businesses use these loans to expand their goods, make more goods, hire more workers, and they make more goods, and the goods are bought. So this is kind of like the economic cycle. And this is one way the economy is going to get going. The second way, and I'll just do this real quick, is tariffs. And I'll just show you this because it's kind of a little bit easier to understand. So tariffs, there's a tax on imports. Okay, this is going to be a way that the government raises money. All right, so in Britain, British-made cloth costs $4 a roll. They send it over. A 25% tariff is added, so a dollar is added to the price. British-made clothes costs $5 a roll in the United States. Okay, American-made cloth costs $4 a roll. All right, so now we're making money off of this tariff, which is we're charging the British goods money, Britain's money to send the goods over, but then we're selling our own American-made cloths at a lower price to then make money off of that. Okay, so this is how the country's going to make money early on. Okay, it's encouraging us to buy American goods because American goods are cheaper. This is something that the government's trying to start to do today, is trying to make American goods made in America cheaper than sending them out to another nation, manufacturing them there. All right. So 25 minutes is long for a video. So we're going to stop there.